and welcome to the first Wish You Were Here of 1989. This is a time when the high street travel agent is waiting on tenterhooks to see how many people are going to come through his door. But what we're interested in is how those potential holidaymakers are looked after when they do turn up. One of the things that the customers will find in this agency, in Eton High Street, which is typical of many thousands of similar small agencies throughout Britain, is the latest electronic information systems. John Carter's been taking a look at them.
Well, at the moment, Judith, the new technology is baffling this old hack, but I've been finding out how equipment like this can simplify the business of choosing and buying a holiday for the staffs of travel agencies all over the country, and, more important, of course, for us, the customers. But all that's coming later.
Right. Our first holiday report is from Turkey, which for the last 3 or 4 years has been the fashionable place to go. The thing about Turkey is that it has 2 coasts, and so far most of the new development has taken place on the south coast, on the Mediterranean. What we wondered is whether the same thing was likely to happen on the north coast, on the Black Sea. So to find out, Annika Rice flew from London to Istanbul, a flight of about 3 3/4 hours, to look in particular at the resort of Kilios. But on this 2-centre holiday, she went first to Istanbul itself.
The ancient Greeks knew it as Byzantium. The Romans called it Constantinople. Today, it's Istanbul and the historic gateway between Europe and Asia.
For British holidaymakers, Turkey is the newest country on the holiday map. Around 500,000 Brits came here in 1988, and 1989, well, it looks set to beat that. But don't expect Spain with minarets. Turkey is really something of a culture shock.
Istanbul leapfrogs the Golden Horn, a narrow tongue of the Bosphorus. The 2 sides are linked by the bustling Galata Bridge with its famous fish restaurants squashed under the arches. Further down the gastronomic scale, fish fryers do a brisk trade in Turkish takeaways. For 80 years, the Galata Bridge has been one of the city's great sights, but hurry, it's due to be demolished this year. Istanbul is perfect for a short break. As well as daily flights from London, British Airways also run inclusive packages. A 3-night weekend starts at £271 and includes flight and bed and breakfast accommodation. The minarets of Istanbul, there are 600 of them. They're like exclamation marks scattered across the city's 7 hills. The Blue Mosque was completed in 1616, but it's the inside that's spectacular. Everything seems to float in an azure light reflected from the tiles which line the 142-foot dome. There are 21,000 tiles in the mosque, and they're decorated in 99 shades of blue, representing the 99 chapters of the Quran. St. Sophia was only converted into a mosque in 1453, after 1,000 years as a Christian church. Istanbul's Grand Bazaar, founded in 1461, well, it must be the granddaddy of the modern shopping precinct. Getting past the salesman is the problem. It's a case of 1 step forward and 2 steps back.
No, thank you. It's very nice, but I don't need a handbag. I have a very good handbag.
Its multi-domed roof covers 2 million square feet of marvellous bargains and merciless bargaining. Every one of its 67 alleys specialises in a different trade, from pottery to brassware, from leather goods to cheap T-shirts, not forgetting 1001 magic carpets. It's a relief to get on one of the boats that potter down the Bosphorus. A full-day excursion, including lunch, costs around £16, but for £2 you can take an ordinary return trip by ferry. From the Topkapi Palace, the Sultans of Turkey once ruled an empire that stretched from the Persian Gulf to the gates of Vienna. In the harem, the Sultan's mother, 4 wives and 300 concubines languished in a hothouse atmosphere of intrigue. The wives vied for the honour of being first wife, and the concubines used every female wile to become the Sultan's favourite. The concubines entertained the Sultan in this room. It was their big chance to catch his eye.
And if the Sultan wanted to ask one of his girls a rather indiscreet question, well, it was very simple. He just got one of his servants to turn on the taps, then no one could overhear them. Oh, what a shame the tap's not working today. I think I'll keep my indiscretions to myself.
Diamonds are a concubine's best friend, and the palace treasury glitters with them. The great emerald dagger is still there, despite being stolen in the film Topkapi. So is the spoonmaker diamond, discovered in a pile of rubbish in the 17th century. Koska's Turkish delight shop turns jewellery into confectionery. It comes in 11 colours and flavours, some delicately perfumed. And here's something to chew on, they sell £1,000 a day. The Galata Tower has been an Istanbul landmark for more than 600 years. Every evening it stages another form of Turkish delight, the shake, rattle and roll of the traditional belly dancer. Sitting and watching humanity flood past is what Istanbul is all about. You'll find most of the fashionable cafes and shops on Istanbul's answer to Oxford Street, which runs from the Galata Tower to Taksim Square. The modern hotels are here too. The Pera Palace Hotel was built 100 years ago for passengers on the Orient Express, carried from the station by sedan chair. During the war, it was a top espionage meeting place, with spies swapping secrets beneath the chandeliers. An ancient lift takes you to generously proportioned rooms. The wardrobes are actually big enough to hold half a dozen spies, and there are large modern bathrooms. A plaque on room 411 reveals that Agatha Christie stayed here while writing Murder on the Orient Express.
Pera Palace is part of a two-centre holiday where you spend 1 week here in Istanbul and 1 week at the Black Sea resort of Kilyos. So you get the best of four worlds, really. You get a bit of Asia, Europe, city and seaside. Get me to that seaside.
24 miles from Istanbul, Turkey's Black Sea coast has a shorter holiday season than the Mediterranean shore further south. That's why it hasn't been so heavily developed. The Turban Hotel, right on the beach, is where you spend your second week.
So where do I get the keys?
Yes, sir. The rooms are in separate blocks set among trees. They're fairly basic, but include shower and loo. Meals are taken in the open-air restaurant. If you're staying at the Turban, you don't have to pay to go on the main Kilyos beach. Anyone else, though, has to fork out £1.20 a day. The lifeguard is important because currents make it dangerous to swim too far out. There are showers, other amenities include beach huts for hire, no sunbeds or water sports, but there is a cafe. The beach is quiet during the week, but at weekends it does get crowded. Kilyos itself is a friendly, one-street village of restaurants and souvenir shops, with a laid-back atmosphere that's almost Caribbean.
Kilyos is the perfect place to unwind after the hustle and chaos of Istanbul. It's great, isn't it? Here we are in mid-August, not exactly what I'd call crowded, but if you do want to get back to Istanbul, well, it's only a 50p ride away. Personally, myself, I think I'll just crash out here for a while.
The cost of that two-centre holiday is £449 in low season, rising to £534 in midsummer. You get bed and breakfast at the Pera Palace, but half board at the Turban. The departures are midweek night flights to Istanbul, and there are 25% discounts for children. The prospect of summer sunshine is what brings many of us into travel agencies like this, searching for just the right holiday. Well, anything that helps that search has to be good news. Here's John Carter.
Eton Travel's not in the big league. It's not up there with your Thomas Cooks, your Lund Pollys and your Pickfords, but like thousands of other independent travel agencies throughout the country, it's able to match those big boys in terms of technology. Now that should mean fast and efficient service when you come in to choose your holiday. The technology works two ways. First, as a source of information, the electronic equivalent of train or air timetables, hotel lists and the like. Called view data, there are some 50 systems on 4 main networks and 30,000 terminals in travel agencies. The second application, and the one we're really interested in, is as a computerized reservation system. The clerk punches up the details, and if you fancy what you see on the screen, it can be plucked from the system and booked for you there and then. Now, some of these systems offer up the separate ingredients of travel: aircraft seats, hotel rooms, car hire, insurance, and so on. And that way you can have a holiday tailor-made. Other systems, put together by the different tour companies, offer their ready-made packages. This technology cuts down on time and effort, and it should eliminate errors. But is it 100% perfect? It isn't perfect for 3 main reasons. First, the systems offering up the ingredients of travel are by no means comprehensive, and you could miss out on the best bargains. Secondly, the systems that deal with package holidays aren't compatible, so there's no way that you can electronically compare the brochures, and again, you could miss out on the bargains. And third, when you do make a booking, there's no instant printing of tickets and vouchers. You have to wait for the documents to be posted to the travel agent and then on to you, and that means the old delays. Now, it's technically possible to link all the package deal systems, but commercial rivalry stands in the way of that. And the same rivalry stops a comprehensive listing of travel ingredients. The conclusion is that the travel trade's still got a long way to go as far as this technology is concerned. It exists all right, but it's not being applied to our best advantage. And remember, we're talking here about the process of choosing and buying what, for most of us, is the most expensive item in the annual budget. So until they get the hardware right, we're going to have to rely on the man, or more usually the girl, behind the counter, and with a few honourable exceptions, the staff of travel agencies are underpaid, undertrained and underqualified. They need the help just as much as we do. But as well as all that technology, other significant changes are taking place in high streets all over the country. And here in Reading, we've got an early example of this different approach to the business of selling holidays. Yes, believe it or not, this is a travel agency. The recently privatised British Airways is spending £10 million giving its travel shops a facelift, and heavily influenced by such high street outlets as Laura Ashley Next and The Body Shop, the style retailers. There are 60 shops at present, with plans for 200. Now, these are more than tarted up travel agencies. They sell high-quality travel goods and travel books. They give you a chance to browse without being pressured. And if you do decide to buy, you sit alongside a consultant, not a salesperson, in what they've nicknamed the fitting room. And a limited range of products means better product knowledge on the part of the staff. So it looks as if that high street revolution is going to come in 2 ways. Places like this selling a limited range of holidays to a limited section of the market, and regarding themselves more as consultants than travel agents, and everywhere the onward march of the keyboards and the display screens. And when the travel trade finally gets it all right, it'll be good news for us, the customers.
John Carter looking at the shape of things to come in our local holiday shops. We're looking now at a coach tour, a holiday popular with a lot of people, where transport and accommodation is provided and you're taken care of from beginning to end. Scotland's been a popular coach touring destination for many years, and last September I went there to sample a tour with a difference. It's a week-long trip which starts in Glasgow and heads north to Inverness before crossing to the Outer Hebrides and Skye. We picked it up on the 3rd day in Ullapool. Early morning in Ullapool. The fishing fleet seems to have gathered at the quay to watch a 1963 Leyland Leopard, straight out of a museum of classic buses, roll onto the ferry bound for the Western Isles. This is a coach tour with a difference. The coaches are from the 1950s, 60s and 70s, and they're specially suited to the leisurely touring around the nooks and crannies of the Highlands and Islands. At the moment, I'm on the ferry going to Lewis in the Outer Hebrides. It's a journey of about 3 hours, and in this way that's long enough. On the way to Lewis, the hardy who've braved the open deck are rewarded by the sight of a Russian factory ship. Provided Lewis hasn't been blown away, the ferry will enter the harbour at Stornoway, the largest town in the Outer Hebrides. Soon you're on the open road. By today's standards, the seats are almost like armchairs. David Dean is tour guide as well as driver.
I hope you're all prepared. 2 hours before you get to the next toilet stop. So I hope you're prepared to use your initiative if you haven't.
Public loos are few and far between in this part of the world, and some locals don't worry about their curb drill. Because the coaches are high, you see far more than you would from a car, although at this point there's not much more to look at than peat bog. It's worth having a pair of Wellingtons at the ready when you visit the Callanish standing stones. The columns are believed to be more than 3,500 years old, and in the British Isles are second only in age and importance to Stonehenge.
I think the wind's blown it up. Gilroy, yeah.
The road is straight as an arrow all the way to the northern tip of the island.
Don't forget, please, when you get back in, can you give your feet a good sugar on the mat at the front of the coach? Otherwise, the inside of the coach will very rapidly change colour and smell. Thank you very much.
It's only a short walk across the cliffs to the butt of Lewis, where the rocks are battered by the Atlantic. Not the best place for a swim unless you happen to be a seal. You won't see anything more dramatic on the tour than this. We're back on the road again, and the scenery is changing all the time. 1 minute, we're in the heather. The next, weaving our way across a landscape which looks like the moon. David is almost as much a one-off as his bus. He likes to be known as the Lone Ranger. His bear prefers to be called Ted. At Plocrapool, remote even by Hebridean standards, the Campbell family are key members of the Harris tweed industry.
It's a single ply we do the washing.
It isn't stranded?
No.
The family have been weaving here for more than 100 years. You can follow the process right through to the finished garment. In the boathouse next door, Marion Campbell, now in her 80s, has been weaving the traditional way for most of her life, often working late into the night. She's been operating the same loom since 1919, uses only natural dyes, and is the proud holder of a British Empire Medal. From one of the oldest industries to one of the newest, Helen Creswell's Lewis Bear stories were the inspiration behind this venture, making teddy bears. Here they turn out every child's favourite toy in tweed and tartan. It's a real cottage industry, giving a boost to the island's economy. Harris also has miles of pure sand beaches, deserted too, although that could have something to do with the temperature. Walking here is bracing, let alone a swim. Most people arrive in the Hebrides by ferry, some having flown to Inverness and then hired a car. Dan Air operates 3 direct flights a day from London Heathrow and a less frequent service from Gatwick. The flying time is around 1.5 hours, and the lowest fare is £75 return for a weekender ticket, available outbound on certain flights on Thursday, Friday and Saturday, returning on Sunday, Monday or Tuesday. If you drive yourself, the foreignness of the Hebrides confronts you immediately. When you come off the ferry, you're faced with signs like this, Stornoway in Gaelic. About 2 years ago, road signs were changed to Gaelic only in an effort to preserve the language, and it can be very confusing. So I strongly recommend that you buy a dual language map like this. This old established family hotel at Tarbert makes a good touring base. Expect to pay around £20 a night each for bed and breakfast, with a small reduction for stays of 5 days or more. This being Scotland, the hotel is well stocked with malt whisky, more than 70 brands all told, some on display in the residence bar. Meals are taken in a spacious dining room, where the emphasis is on good home cooking. The 26 bedrooms are simply furnished, but many do have private baths or showers. Back on the coach, and we've reached the Isle of Skye.
In the distance, dead ahead, is Flora MacDonald's monument. You know all about Flora
The great thing
MacDonald.
about being on a coach tour is that everything's done for you. You don't need to worry about map reading, and in this case David takes care of the driving and makes sure you don't miss anything en route.
There's a black house, a smithy's shop, the weaving shed. Gives you an idea how they lived here in the last century. There were about 30,000 people left here in the middle of the last century. When you've seen that, if you're interested, you can go up ahead there to Flora MacDonald's grave and monument. You know all about Flora MacDonald by now. I nearly forgot to tell you, there's a prize of 2 Jaffa cakes for anyone that can remember the inscription on the monument, Flora MacDonald's famous inscription.
It was 10 quid last year.
I've destitute there.
And it wouldn't surprise me if there was someone on board who could tell him what the prize was 2 years before that. The Hebrides are so different from the mainland, it's like being abroad. For the independent traveller, there are lots of bed and breakfast places, but the choice of hotels and restaurants is limited. The food is good and excellent value for money. As for the weather, well, the locals say that May and June are the best months, and the rest of the year, well, you can get 4 seasons in just one day, so be prepared. That 7-day coach tour of the Western Isles, which begins and ends in Glasgow, cost £255, and the price includes accommodation and half board, but not, of course, the cost of getting to and from Glasgow. Well, just before we go, another quick word about holidays in 1989. Some of the big companies are already cutting their prices, John.
Oh yes, they're desperate to get in the bookings this month and in February, and I think you could interpret those discounts as a sign of uneasiness on their part. Personally, I don't think there is going to be a great rush to buy. Money is tight, especially among people who've got bigger mortgage repayments. I think sluggish is the way you describe the market.
So that could lead to discounts. I mean, we've had them before, haven't we?
Yes, and of course, there's always the possibility that the tour companies will cancel any holidays that aren't selling well. But if any of this happens, it's not going to happen for quite a while yet. I think it'll take another 2 or 3 weeks before the first pattern begins to establish itself.
We should be keeping an eye on those developments in the holiday scene during the next few weeks. By the way, if you'd like details of the holidays we've looked at today on the programme, they're on fact sheet number 5, and we'll be giving you the address to write to in just a moment. Next week, the whole programme is devoted to Spain, which is still the #1 destination for British package holidaymakers. I shall be going to the Costa del Sol and looking at Puerto Banús, among other places. We'll be horse riding in the Sierra Nevada and driving around the high country of Andalusia. Join us then, won't you? Bye-bye.
For details of all the holidays featured in this programme, see page 194 of ITV's Oracle Teletext service.